It is 82% of women do not have sanitary pads, and 4% of the women who are using rads, they are all getting affected with reproductive health infections. How cruelly we are treating this earth. So I'm mostly going to talk about promoting sustainable menstruation.
On the Female Voice, our series at We the Women devoted to chronicling the tales of India's change makers. Today, let's start with a question. How many women and girls do you think have access to sanitary pads? Where might you place that number? You might think, what, 60%, 70%? Well, let me shock you by telling you that almost 90% of India's women and girls still do not have access to something we in our class take for granted, and that is pads or sanitary pads. Our change maker today is someone who has devoted her life's journey to the rights of women and in particular has focused on this issue of menstrual hygiene and access to menstrual hygiene. Let's welcome to our Changemaker series on the Female Voice, Kala Charlu, whose foundation Neetu, in memory of her daughter, and we'll talk about that as well, is doing so much extraordinary work. Welcome to the Female Voice, our Changemaker series, Kala. I want to start by asking you to talk a little bit about how you got into this space, when you first started noticing that this, which we, our class of women, takes for granted, was in fact not available to the majority of Indian women.
Yeah, I started this foundation in 2009, 11 years back, and that time the scenario was very bad, and we found that through this statistics that we find in Nielsen, it is 82% of women do not have sanitary pads, and 4% of the women who are using rads, they are all getting affected with reproductive health infections. And there is a big group of girls who are not attending school. Either they are dropping out or there is absenteeism during the year. They are dropping out of school on 54 days, which is a big number. So what has happened is I have come a full circle now. I started off with giving away sanitary pads, and I find that there are many of us who are doing that. And since there is no disposal solution for non-biodegradable sanitary pads, so the landfill is getting filled up. There is no solution. You know, burying it is bad, then burning it is worse. But in my opinion, throwing it in the landfill or water bodies, many of these women are flushing it out. Either of that is the worst possible solution that they can think of. So we have to first find a solution for decomposing all these pads. God alone knows how many years it takes for these pads to decompose. And it's a big secret, you know. The multinational companies who make these pads, they are not telling us exactly what is the component of a pad, how much gel is there, how much of wood pulp is there, how long does it take to. So just now, after so many years of working in this field, I find that I want to promote sustainable menstruation straight away. I want to tell everyone who is working in this field that first of all, find a solution for disposal,
Yeah.
or composting or an alternate product.
So you're making two separate points. One, that there is no access to the sanitary pads, and two is to ask the question: what is the composition of these pads? What is their impact not just on the environment but also on our bodies? We don't know how much plastic we're wearing when we're wearing these pads. We don't know what chemicals we're wearing. So you are making two separate points actually. So how did you focus both on providing that access and then on making sure that it was biodegradable?
Yeah, access is not really in my hands. You know, as I'm running a foundation, I need lot of funds to give a product away. So I'm usually spending all my money and energy, and my field workers and volunteers and trainers, they're spending a lot of our time on creating awareness in breaking the silence. And because it's such a taboo subject, so all we have to do is talk to all these women, especially in the rural area, make sure that they realize the damage that is caused by these non-biodegradable sanitary pads, and then maybe shift over. But it takes a long time. It's a real challenge for us to make them to shift over from shop bought pads to reusable pads or even menstrual cups. It's a real challenge. What has happened is this multinational companies have penetrated deeply into the villages of Karnataka. And I just now did a survey. We have got some data from 300 village community women, and we asked them this question: how many of you are using pads? How many of you are using pad and cloth? And another question was only cloth. So we found that out of 300 women, 30 women are using cloth and 33 women are using a combination of cloth and pad. In the sense, when they stay at home, they
Yeah.
are using a pad. When they go out, or when they can afford it, maybe then they are using these shop bought pads. So I'm totally now, because of the garbage that is all around us, and also this how cruelly we are treating this earth. So I'm mostly going to talk about promoting sustainable menstruation and tell people to use cloth pads and maybe menstrual cups. Why
So,
not? I
so,
think
so
this
you
is
are
what is the next step that we should take.
So how are you encouraging this sustainable model? Because for cloth pads, what it would mean is that you have to wash. You have to wash and reuse, and you have to encourage people to do that. Secondly, there is obviously a kind of aspirational quality to it. Most girls today believe that pads is something that they should be able to sort of have for granted. And three, with menstrual cups, there's a lot of disinformation. As it is, this is still a taboo subject. We don't speak about it openly. It's the same sort of myths that existed about tampons. People are worried about using a product that they have to insert. There are questions that are raised then about completely unscientific questions raised about virginity and so on. So, what are some of the hurdles that you are confronting?
Yeah, menstrual cups is little difficult to explain. I find that it's easy to explain to those people who are educated. And you're right about this aspiring class. So what we plan to do is take these women who are from urban areas, who are already using a menstrual cup, ask them to share their experiences and tell the world around how comfortable it is. That is one thing. Second thing we want to do is to identify leaders in these villages, find out if somebody is bold enough, who has a leadership quality, who is ready to use a menstrual cup, then really take her up as a role model and take it forward. And it's a very slow process, it's a real challenge. But what we are doing with cloth is that we are showing them the difference between a rag and a cloth. A rag is something which is already used, which is torn. It could be a piece of cloth, a scrap of cloth. Some women are using, foot rug, and some women are using blouses, and without removing the hook. So what we are trying to tell them.
Blouses with that metal hook in them being used as pads. I mean, that is very, very dangerous.
Dangerous because of the the rust that gets formed, and then so of course in Karnataka it's improved a lot. I find that in Karnataka rural villages, of course I've gone about say 30 to 50-kilometer radius around Bangalore, and we have worked in Chitradurga and also in Yadgir. But in 2015, Government
Yeah.
of India started giving away free pads. So
Hmm.
in the beginning, the distribution and other things were very haphazard, and it was not reaching the people in time. Sometimes they would get 30 pads in one shot, and for 6 months they wouldn't get anything at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's go back to what you said in the beginning about girls who don't go to school the day they have their period. Actually, the data shows you that millions of girls just stop attending school altogether. Schools are often far from the village that they live in. There are not enough bathrooms, there are not enough toilets for girls, and then there are no sanitary pads or other ways, other sort of forms of menstrual hygiene and protection. How do you encourage? How do you tell families? How do you tell girls you've got to keep studying? Your period is not a reason to stop going to school.
Yeah, that's all through role play and activities. We tell them there are a lot of songs in Kannada which we repeat with them, and then it's all a matter of awareness. So we get a chance to speak to them for 40 minutes at any given time, and then we tell them about all this and somehow try to, make them change their behavior. And even the schools, the teachers and all are coming with us when we sit there and talk to the girls. We
Yeah.
collect the girls from age 9 to age 15. And then we call all the teachers to please come and sit with us and tell them how important it is. Sometimes we get a chance to call the mothers too. It's
Hmm.
important that the whole community comes together and then makes the change. The problem we are facing is with
Where do you
men.
face? Yeah, I was going to ask you that. What is the problem you face with the men? What do they
Yeah,
say?
even though the word menstruation has got men in it, well, they're not really open to talk about menstruation so openly. So in the beginning, this is all before 2015. When I went and offered to donate sanitary pads in a school, the headmaster was a male, he was a man. So he told me, Madam, please don't talk about all this. Why don't you donate books? Why don't you donate uniform or shoes? This is something that we cannot really handle.
Yeah.
So all that kind of there is no openness still. There is some secrecy behind it all.
Yeah, and we don't help matters by naming sanitary pads names like Whisper, or selling them at pharmaceutical stores wrapped in black plastic packets like it's a secret to hide. So of course, there's a whole culture of secrecy around it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your foundation, Neetu. I know it's named after your daughter who you lost tragically in a car accident. How old was she when she died, ma'am?
She was 26 years old, and she was married, and she's coming back to Bangalore. She was working, she and her husband were working in Hyderabad, and she was coming to Bangalore when this accident happened.
Hmm.
So it was a on the spot because they hit a truck, a stationary truck, which was parked in the middle of the night without any lights or without anything to say that it is parked. And this happened. The car that they were traveling in, it just went under the truck, and that was it. So it was very, very, very sudden. I just could not tell you how sudden it was.
Hmm. And it must have completely broken you. From where did you find the strength to get up, pick up the pieces, live your life, and then channel that grief into this work that you do at Neetu?
I really don't know what really happened because almost for 3 4 years I was totally in kind of a depression, and I really didn't want to do anything much. 3 to 4 years it took me to recover. Then one day my dad told me, he's a psychiatrist, so he said, well, your daughter is gone, but there are thousands of other girls who are like me too. Why don't you do something instead of wallowing in self pity? So that kind of woke me up, and there must have been some inside me. I must have wanted to do some social service all my life. So I used to go and give away, every anniversary I would give away all kinds of different things, donate, to go to slums and donate. And one time I took saris. 30 women were there. I took 30 saris and I said, let me do it on her birthday on February 5th, I remember. I took the saris, wanted to donate it in a slum. There were only 30 saris, but then about 50 women came rushing. It was almost like a stampede. And then they grabbed it. And then they fought amongst themselves that they want some other color. And then they told me, why don't you give us some money to get a petticoat and a blouse? And I got shocked. I came home and I told my dad, it's not at all satisfying for me. Then he said, well, even they are not happy, you're not happy. Do something that, you know,
Yeah.
the do something that will teach them, train them in some way, stop donating stuff. So that's when I decided. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, that's when I decided. But it's better to teach them a skill rather than keep donating something that they don't want, and nobody is happy in the end. But now this kind of work is giving me a lot of satisfaction, I find.
And do you feel that your daughter, of course, lives on through this work that you do? Is there a sense that her spirit defines the work that you do?
My God, it's true. It's some divine intervention because anything I take up, I'm succeeding so much. And I have a lot of people who are coming and helping me out, and my volunteers, my everyone is helping me in such a way. It's really true. There is something divine going on here. Once you take the bold step, it
Yeah. Once you
automatically
take that
falls in
first step,
place.
it all happens. Let me ask you in the end, what is your message to young girls everywhere who are listening to this? Your life changed. Tragedy changed your life. You picked it up, you started living, and you started working for the rights of other women and young girls in particular. What is your message to young girls everywhere in India?
Yes, you go on doing everything. Life goes on. One person may go away. One person dies, but you die 1,000 deaths and then you come out, it's like out of the fire. You come out all like a phoenix. You come out more powerful, and you'll be able to see the whole picture. The perspective is so clear for me. I've become so courageous, like I'm not afraid of anything. You've lost your daughter. What more can be more of a loss than that? So I feel
So
that
strongly that losing your daughter, that extreme tragedy, freed you
yeah,
from fear.
exactly. It's peculiar. I don't know how of
No,
course you
very
have to channel
actually,
your thoughts.
no, it's very understandable because you're saying that there was nothing more in life that would ever matter as much, right? And
Yeah,
yeah, it totally makes sense actually.
yeah. Losing a daughter is like losing something of your own self. And
Yeah.
they say losing a child. There is a saying, "Dukkham nirantaram." When a mother loses a child, I don't know about fathers, but when a lady loses a child, it really affects her. It's something that you feel you have lost one part of your body, maybe because she came out of your womb or something.
Well,
So,
you've been able to convert that into something so extraordinary. Thank you. Bless you and bless your daughter's
thank
memory.
you.
And keep doing the great work.
Yeah, she's helping me. She's there everywhere. Wherever I see there is one me too, and I feel like doing something for her. And it goes on. Life goes on like this, I suppose.
Keep going and bless you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.